I remember a time before corporate IPs were the only way to find and consume media. Before you had to jump through hurdles of remembering your username and password to each unique service. Before all of our favorite shows and movies were gate-kept away behind a paywall. Before the streaming era, there was cable, a media release model that relied on a physical cable connection and one yearly subscription to access the various channels of shows and television. Now, cable wasn't perfect. You were at the mercy of whatever was on, reruns mostly. It wasn't until recording became the standard that households would start to have more autonomy in the selection process. Sure, there were more commercial breaks, and sometimes you miss your show and wouldn't watch it until sometime later if you were lucky. Like I said, it wasn't perfect, but it was understood. A relatively equal playing field for everyone to pick and choose from the same pool of entertainment options. Everything changed when the Netflix attacked. The streaming behemoth we know today started modestly in the late 90s. By the mid-2000s, it had gained popularity by offering a service where customers could rent a movie online and have that movie delivered to their home in the form of a DVD. After a week or two, you'd send it back. Just like the library or Blockbuster model at the time that preceded it, with the comfort of never having to leave your home. The first of many changes made for the consumer's convenience and comfort that would seem small in the moment, but would lead to much larger implications. By the time Netflix started its all-in streaming service, the game would be changed forever. All of a sudden, consumers had the option to pay a small monthly fee to have access to a seemingly endless amount of potential programs to watch, at their speed, on their time. This was like Pandora's box being opened. There was no going back. Soon, any larger company that owned intellectual properties would look to mimic the success of Netflix. The overall dominance of Netflix created an environment where streaming was the name of the game. HBO Max, Disney+, Hulu, and many others would quickly adapt to the streaming model to try and compete. This was the beginning of the streaming wars. For years, none of the streamers would even come remotely close to the success that Netflix had. And it had such a big head start compared to its imitators that the gap between their content seemed insurmountable. Undoubtedly, over time and years, this delta would decrease, and by the time we get to 2024, the rat race had gotten down and dirty. IP had swapped hands so many times that not even diehard fans were always sure what service to open to get to their favorite TV shows. And it was suddenly unclear who was winning the streaming wars. Industry leaders had missteps. Underdog services had surprising ratings. And amongst consumers, everyone seemed to have their own unique collection of streaming subscriptions at any given point. Amongst all the chaos of the larger streamers, there was one that was quietly building up an arsenal of sleeper hits that are not only critically well received, but also turn in positive ratings. While maybe not the first streamer that would come to mind when considering the streaming wars, this streamer would prove that sometimes the tortoise does beat the hare. That in some cases, quality is better than quantity. Today, I'm here to highlight the dark horse of the streaming wars. You may not see it coming, but it just may be the best streaming service available at this time. Apple TV Plus launched on November 1st, 2019. Despite it being directly tied to the biggest tech company of the modern world, it debuted very underwhelmingly. It was designed to be a platform for exclusive original shows, movies, and documentaries from various storytellers, and as such would have a quieter start to its time in the streaming space. Dickinson and For All Mankind would be the first Apple TV shows released that would receive its fair share of audience praise, but the first show that made me aware of Apple TV Plus was Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso began airing in August of 2020, just months into the pandemic. Ted Lasso is an American football coach and is hired to manage a British soccer team. What he lacks in knowledge, he makes up for in optimism, determination, and biscuits. The series highlights the various points of view of characters around the British soccer team. We get insight into the players, coaches, and managers' lives and see how they navigate struggles with life and relationships. This show is known for its upbeat tone and optimistic point of view. It was an instant success, seemingly putting Apple TV Plus on the map overnight. The series would go on to have 2 more seasons that would also be received very positively by fans, and even at the time of this recording, there are talks of a 4th season continuation. It was apparent that Ted Lasso was an utter success for the new service, but could Apple TV do it again? Could lightning strike twice? Could it strike 3 times? Panchico, Blackbird, and Foundation are all darker tone series on Apple TV with 90% or above on Rotten Tomatoes. These are just a few of the series on Apple TV that don't get as much attention or praise, but critically perform better than most streaming series. However, the next project that would catch my attention would be Severance. Severance follows Mark, who leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey of self-discovery. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs. Severance came out in February of 2022 and had my attention from the first scene. A mystery thriller series that has audiences on the edge of their seat and leads viewers guessing and theorizing at what it could all mean after each episode. I've seen the series compared to Lost and how it captivated the public during its original run. With a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, it seems that the public would agree that Severance is one of the best shows to come out during the 2020s. At the time of this recording, the 2nd season has already wrapped, and there are more seasons on the way. The next series is one that you may not have heard of. The Shrink Next Door is inspired by a true story of Marty and a therapist who turned his life around and then took it over. When he first meets Dr. Ike, Marty just wants to get better at boundaries. He learns all about them and what happens when they get crossed. This series stars Paul Rudd, Will Ferrell, and Kathryn Hahn. Easily one of the most stacked lineup of likable comedic and dramatic performers coming together for a surprisingly introspective dive into mental health and adult relationships. It wasn't a perfect series, but it was certainly packed with many hard-hitting monologues and dramatic sequences that still stick with me to this day. All that being said, I have only met a handful of people who have actually seen this show. On paper, if you told me a psychological mystery show starring Paul Rudd, Will Ferrell, and Kathryn Hahn existed, I would have assumed that it would be an absolute hit. Part of the issue is the oversaturation of content spread out over many services. Not only is there a large amount of competition, but it can feel impossible to sift through the endless options available. When you have too many options, you can experience choice overload, and the anxiety that comes with it can lead you to picking the most simple option possible. Another Apple TV series that is criminally underrated is Shrinking. Starring Jason Segel, Harrison Ford, Krista Miller, and Brett Goldstein, this series follows a grieving therapist who starts to break the rules by telling his clients exactly what he thinks. Jimmy has lost his wife and wants to try a new approach to his loss, but it's unclear how this will help others. This series deserves all the attention in the world. It is by the same creator as Ted Lasso and shares its same optimistic core and point of view. However, the story dives into the various ways that grief and loss can affect a community. We see this tragic loss send ripples through friends, family, and lovers while unpacking their unique points of view. The series is also unrelentlessly funny and is committed to sending their viewers away with a smile. Sitting at 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, this is another series that deserves to be considered one of the best in the 2020s. Are you starting to get the theme here? Apple TV has some of the most prestigious content I've ever seen. It feels like the new age HBO, but for some reason nobody's talking about it. The last show I'll be highlighting here is the newest I've seen added to the Apple TV catalog, and perhaps the most ambitious I've seen in years. The Studio follows Matt Remick, who is the newly appointed head of Continental Studios. Desperate for celebrity approval, he and his executive team at the movie studio must juggle corporate demands with creative ambitions as they try to keep movies alive and relevant. This show stars Seth Rogen, Kathryn Hahn, and Ike Barinholtz, who all do a fantastic job tackling their characters in the series, as well as the hilarious comedy that comes with it. The show is also packed with a lot of celebrity cameos. To name a few, there are Zac Efron, Bryan Cranston, Dave Franco, Catherine O'Hara, and so many more. Not only is this series praised for its realistic depiction of how executives work in the Hollywood industry, but its dedication to craftsmanship on the show is out of this world. It's gained a reputation for having very little cuts in all of their episodes. Most episodes consist of a handful of cuts, at most 4 or 5, and are otherwise filmed in one running shot. This series is currently sitting at a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I personally think that it deserves even better. This series is so inside baseball. It breaks down these lofty, Hollywood ideas in a way that anyone can consume, and it's a masterclass at creating tension, comedy, and drama. There are plenty of other shows that have not been highlighted that set Apple TV Plus apart from the competition. Other platforms have plenty of amazing shows on their catalog for sure, and compared to most, I'd say Apple TV probably has the smallest catalog, but what they lack in numbers, they more than make up for in quality. Other aspects of the service I'd love to highlight is the actual user interface that consumers are met with when using the app. Not only do I appreciate the layout and think that it's efficiently designed, I love the insight feature that it has. Amazon has the same thing. If I'm watching a show, I can pause it and immediately see who the actors and actresses are in the scene. Also, at times, I can see what music's being played in the background. This is such a fun feature to have on a service, especially if you are a big fan of film and television. Being able to identify strong actors is always a plus. It's a feature that I'm shocked that all the streamers have not adopted yet, and yet another indicator of how Apple TV is quietly It's a feature that I'm shocked that all the other streamers have not adopted yet, and yet another indicator of how Apple TV is quietly outperforming the competition. At the end of the day, navigating the streaming era is not where any of us thought we would be 10 years ago. I myself go through decision fatigue and am tired of juggling so many subscriptions along different platforms just to keep up with my favorite shows. Whether you are a Netflix, Disney Plus, or even Tubi enjoyer, there's enough content to go around for all of us to enjoy. That being said, it is my opinion that pound for pound, Apple TV Plus is producing consistent and high-quality content and should be looked at as an industry leader, an example for how the other streamers should approach their release model. Well, there you have it. That is why I think Apple TV is the dark horse of the streaming wars. And remember, people, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion down in the comment section down below. What is your favorite streaming service? What are your thoughts on the streaming wars in general? If you had to pick just one service to use for the rest of your life, what would it be and why? As always, I appreciate any feedback and would love to keep the conversation going down below. I hope you guys enjoyed. I just wanted to highlight some of the amazing shows on Apple TV because, again, when I'm talking to people about all the best content out there, I almost never hear people bringing up Apple TV, and it's time that it gets its flowers. As always, my name is Darius Cook, and remember that I love you.